good or bad. In other words, be able to look at your life objectively. Self-awareness was first theorized in the 1970s, but has really gained prominence in the early 2000s with 9/11 and the dot-com bubble bursts and the spate of corruption cases, like Enron in the lead up to the global economic recession. If you remember, people were looking for genuine, authentic leadership. Now, this is one case study we're going to look at. This is Kenneth Lay, who was the CEO of Enron. He played a leading role in the corruption scandal that led to the downfall of the Enron Corporation. Lay and Enron became synonymous with corporate abuse and accounting fraud when the scandal broke in 2001. In 2004, Lay was indicted on 11 counts of securities fraud and related charges. He was found guilty on May 25, 2006 of 10 of the charges against him. Now, because each count carried a maximum of 5 to 10 year sentence, legal experts said Lay could face 20 to 30 years in prison. However, he died of a heart attack while vacationing about 3.5 months before sentences. Now, listen to him. Listen to him. This is somebody who was indicted, 10 counts of the 11, and yet this is what he says. I lived my life in a certain way to make sure that I would never violate any law, certainly not criminal laws, and have always maintained that the most important thing to me was my integrity, my character, my values. And you're like, are you serious? You were just indicted, you were just about to sentence to 20 or 30 years in jail, and this is what you say? Was he self-aware at all? Let's take another case example. Bernie Madoff, many of you heard of him as well. And then and the other things, you have a big problem when you are not self-aware. That's one thing, but when others around you are not giving you the right feedback, that's, oh my goodness. And towards the end, I'll speak more about how important feedback is, which is why we did the exercise in the beginning. Can you see my screen? Give me feedback. So Madoff founded a Wall Street firm, all right, after his own name. In the 1960s, and I'm glad there's some people from Data Bank here. They probably know this story inside out. He was the chairman, from 1960 until he was arrested on December 11, 2008. Now, on March 12, 2009, Madoff pleaded guilty to 11 federal felonies and admitted to turning his wealth management business into a massive Ponzi scheme that defrauded thousands of investors of billions of dollars. Now, federal investigators believe that the fraud began as early as the mid-1980s. And those charged with recovering the missing money believe that the investment operation may never have been legitimate. The amount missing from clients' accounts, including fabricated gains, was almost $65 billion. $65 billion. He's currently serving, in a federal prison. He's in jail as we speak. Yet look at what his defense attorney says. You can say he's doing his job, but if people are like this around you, giving you a false feedback, how would you ever be self-aware? Look at what Daniel Horowitz said, his defense attorney. Bernie is a long-standing leader in the financial services industry. True. He will fight to get through this unfortunate set of events. True. He is a man of integrity. Hello. Hello. Ladies and gentlemen, this self-awareness thing is serious. In fact, self-awareness is a key part of something we call emotional intelligence. I'll not talk much about that because next week somebody's going to deal with that. But, Goldman in his work says self-awareness comprises 3 competencies. Number 1 is emotional self-awareness. This is where you are able to read and understand your own emotions as well as recognize the impact of your emotions on your work performance and on your relationships. Emotional self-awareness. Number 2 is accurate self-assessment. This is where you're able to give a realistic evaluation of your own strengths and limitations. And then finally, self-confidence, where you have a positive and strong sense of self-worth. So if you want to write this as an equation, self-awareness equals emotional self-awareness plus accurate self-assessment plus self-confidence. But you can see that the starting point and the key in these areas is the ability to be critically self-reflective. And we'll talk more about that when we come to the how. So what are we supposed to be aware of? Northouse, in his book, he has a thick book on leadership. He says self-awareness refers to the personal insights of the leader. It is not an end in itself, but a process in which individuals understand themselves, including their strengths and weaknesses, and the impact they have on others, and coming to grips with who you really are at the deepest level. So self-awareness typically means having a deep understanding of these things. And I hope you're taking some notes. Number one, of your identity. This includes your personality, your temperament. Number two, your history or your heritage. And later I'll talk about a tool called the genogram in tracking, your heritage, your family history especially. Number three, your purpose, your why. Self-aware of your core beliefs and worldview. Usually this is shaped by our culture or your culture. Our beliefs grow from what we see, hear, experience, what we read, what we think about, and our faith assumptions. Okay. Are you aware of your faith assumptions? Number five, your values. Are you aware of your values? These are things we deem important. Are you aware of your emotions? I talked about that, when I gave you the formula. This includes your passions, your moods. How many of you know how to name your emotion? I'm telling you, I just learned it like 2-3 years ago, how to name my emotion. And apparently, if you're going to tame an emotion, you've got to be able to name it. Name it, you tame it. So now, as an adult, it's when I learned to say, what am I feeling? Okay, am I mad? Am I glad? Am I sad? Am I feeling bad? And now I'm teaching my children, even the 3-year-old can tell me I'm mad or I'm sad. What a privilege they have, but that's because I've suffered badly for being emotionally constipated. That's how I used to call myself. I used to be really terrible about expressing my emotions until I started this emotionally healthy spirituality journey. So emotional self-awareness is the ability to understand your own emotions and their effects on your performance. You know what you're feeling and why, and how it helps or hurts what you are trying to do. And also knowing your emotional needs. And how that affects you, especially in marriage. If you don't satisfy your partner's emotional needs, you are in real trouble. You not understand why he or she is behaving like a crazy person, but it's a real thing. But she herself or he herself may not even know if they are not self-aware. So emotions, let's quickly go through the rest of the list. Be aware of your shadows. We all have a false self. Every one of us. We all have a false self or a shadow self. Time will not allow us to go into that alone, but of course, be aware of your strengths, including your giftedness, your weaknesses, your biases, your blind spots. What else? Yes, we need to be aware of our leadership style, our communication style, and usually both leadership and communication style will flow out of your personality, your preferences, your motivations, your habits and tendencies, your limits and boundaries. It's only recently I've accepted the fact that God is God and I am not. In other words, I have limits. And I struggle with limits. I tell you, I think I can do anything and everything. And I leave very little margin in my life. And that is something I have realized. And so I get help for. All right. So now I can imagine some of you already thinking, oh my goodness, 17 things to be self-aware of. We're in trouble. The point is not to overwhelm you, but to underscore the fact that many of us are taking a lot of things for granted about our own personal leadership. And yet we are running off influencing others interpersonally. All right. So that's the point of this. So hopefully you get something out of this list. So let's do a quick poll now. On a scale of 1 to 10, with 1 being terrible and 10 being terrific, how would you rate your current level of self-awareness? Can we pull up the poll? That's right. How will you rate your current level of self-awareness? Can you all see yeah? Nobody's voted so far.
So you rate yourself, you choose 1, 2, yes. 3, 4, or 10. Just yes. Click it and let's see how it goes.
I don't see the poll moving. Okay, now it's begun to move. Okay, a few people are, all right. Okay, so most people are 4, 5, 6 in their level of self-awareness. We don't have a 1 so far. Let me see if we have a 10. I'll be very surprised. Actually, if you have a 10, you probably are not self-aware. Oh, wow, you have 10s here. Okay. Okay. All right. Interesting. All right. So majority of us are kind of in the middle. I see. 3, 4, 5. 5 is the most. 5 is the most for sure. So we can all move from 5 to 6, from 6 to 7, etc. on the scale. And those of you who are 10, please put your name in the chat box. I'd like to have a chat conversation with you. All right. So thank you for participating in the polls. Let me let me end it now. Let's see how many participated. I'm trying to, okay.
Shall I see the results, Ike?
Yeah, but I don't know how come it looks like we did all the other polls as well, because I'm seeing results of the other
Oh, you're
polls.
seeing the results?
Of the other polls we haven't done yet. I don't know what happened.
Oh, I see.
Yeah.
We'll have to relaunch them. So
Yes, we probably have to
do the polls.
Okay. All right. So I have just 10 minutes left. Let me round up. Now I can't. Okay. Good. All right. So now let's begin to get into peeling back the onion. That is the metaphor Bill George uses. If you've never read his book, Discovering Your True North, I highly recommend it. It's one of the best because he really is a leader in authentic leadership. And he uses this idiom or this metaphor of peeling back the onion as a great metaphor of the journey of our self-awareness to the core. All right, to the authentic self. Now, there are so many things we tend to cover ourselves with. You know, initially we cover ourselves with things to protect us, especially when we've had certain hurts and pains, you know, in our journey in life. The commonest thing, you know, literally that we cover ourselves with is actually our attire and appearance. I mean, makeup is real. We really do makeup. And someone once confessed, listen to this, he said, as you can see that the outer is body language, attire, appearance, even leadership style. Even leadership style, you can fake it, right? Fake it till you make it. And someone once said about what they wear, they said, I need to look good on the outside because I feel so rotten on the inside. Wow. It will be an interesting psychoanalytical study of the emperor who was so much into clothing that even when it was sold an expensive, invisible one, he bought into it. What made that emperor, the emperor who had no clothes, so much into clothes, including invisible clothes? So there are two perspectives that give self-awareness. There's the viewpoint of intrapersonal perspective, and there's the interpersonal perspective. And you can see from this matrix here. Intrapersonal perspective focuses closely on the leader himself or herself and what goes on within the leader. So it incorporates the leader's self-knowledge, self-regulation, self-concept. All right, this is how we know ourselves, you know, by ourselves. This is how well do you know yourself. Okay, versus interpersonal, which results from the leader's, not the leader's efforts alone, but also from the response of followers and others in his or her circle, right? How well you understand how others see you. Take a good note of these two perspectives and processes because they are the two same things. If we come to how do I grow in my self-awareness, those are the two same things that will help you. So if you look at this matrix, it illustrates the interpersonal perspectives, that is the internal self-awareness, and the interpersonal perspective, the external self-awareness. So Tasha Eurich drew this and says, look, those who have high internal self-awareness but low external self-awareness, she calls them introspectors. She says they are clear on who they are, but they don't challenge their own views. Or search media sana metia, but people are saying media sana metia, you know, like they are like clocks that are spoiled, that don't work. They are always at the same place. They don't challenge their own views or search for blind spots by getting feedback from others, right? So they are high in the internal self-awareness, but low in external self-awareness. This can harm their relationships and success. Then there are those who are low in internal self-awareness and low in external self-awareness as well. She calls them seekers. I call them stragglers because they don't know who they are, what they stand for, how their teams see them. So they get frustrated, they feel stuck, you know, with their performance and relationships. Then there's the low internal self-awareness, but high external self-awareness. These are the pleasers. They can be so focused on appearing a certain way to others that they could be overlooking what matters to them, what's happening within them. Over time, they tend to make choices that aren't in line with their own success and fulfillment. And then finally, they are aware. That's where we want to be aware. These are those who have high internal self-awareness, but also high external self-awareness. This is where we want to be, all of us, right? They know who they are. They know what they want to accomplish. They seek out others' opinion as well. This is where we want to be. Okay. So let's see if I can wrap this up in the next 5 or so minutes. Why is self-awareness important? Why is it important? I show you this picture. This is a group of country leaders of the HUD group. I lead this group. We work in about 22 countries. Started in 2003 when I was still in medical school in Ghana. And We were in Egypt 3 years ago. Every year in November, we meet from around the world. Now, when we started the Heart Group in 2003, we learned the importance of self-awareness the hard way. Because when we started, we were gung-ho, like all pumped about inspiring and empowering people to discover their purpose and reach their full potential and change the world, blah, blah, yada, yada. Then things came from nowhere and bit the well-trained people, and bit people in their buttocks, if you like. By the way, we're not the only ones who have noticed that the first and foremost important thing in leadership development is actually self-awareness. In fact, now there's a whole field called psychodynamics of leadership. When they are studying, because if this guy has gone to Oxford, he's gone to Harvard, he has an MBA, a PhD in leadership, and yet he does something totally stupid. And everybody's like, how did that happen? All right. And so the core, the place to start is self-awareness. This is why we are doing this. Self-awareness. This is a matrix by a friend of mine called Carson Pugh. He lives in Vancouver in Canada. And it wasn't until recently that the Heart Group came across this and said, oh, we've been starting from number 3. Discovering purpose, visioneering, and then helping people to implement their vision. And no, you got to go to number 1. The number 1 reason you want to lead with self-awareness is that no purpose can be sustainably achieved, personal or corporate, without a firm foundation of self-awareness and the consequent actions that come from knowing yourself. I agree with Bill George that self-awareness should be the starting point in every leader's development. So you look at this and Carson Pugh says the deep-seated understanding of who we are as humans is important. Now, of course, Carson is a pastor as well. And so he has a cross there saying that it's self-awareness, also as a child of God, through Christ Jesus, if you're a person of faith, right? But that self-awareness and God awareness is the place to start. Then number 2 will be what he calls freeing up. And satisfying, disentangling ourselves from those things that hold us back when we have become self-aware. Before we can go in and do these great things, that there are presidents who have become presidents and then they've gone to chase a small girl because there's some self-awareness things that have not been dealt with or not been coached, all right, or not been restrained. So this is the way the process should go. Number 1, this is why you want to do it. Without self-awareness, you don't have a foundation, you don't have a proper start, and you can never have an authentic leadership, certainly not a sustained success. Why do we need self-awareness? Integrity, because you don't want to be one person here, one person there. You have no peace, there's total dissonance. You want authentic leadership. Who you are on the inside is who you are on the outside. Number 3, why do you want self-awareness? Because then you can make better decisions and wise judgment. Gada et al. Said, when leaders know themselves and have a clear sense of who they are and what they stand for, they have a strong anchor for their decisions and their actions. In fact, when leaders know themselves and have a clear sense of who they are, it's amazing how decisions they can be made, even when they are difficult decisions. Number 4, why do you need self-awareness? Because research has shown that self-knowledge, self-consistency have a positive impact on followers' satisfaction with leaders. It has a positive impact on organizational commitment. It has a positive impact on perceived team effectiveness. Your effect on others is why you need this. But this is I know there are many people of faith on the call, so this is a special one for you. You need to be self-aware because without self-awareness, you cannot even know God. It's called a double knowledge. You need to know God to know yourself. You need to know yourself to know God. As St. Augustine said, grant, Lord, that I may know myself, that I may know thee. I have some other quotes here. I probably can't go through them because of time, but you get the slide, and then you know that it takes a self-knowledge to actually get a God knowledge. Don't forget, we're made in the image and likeness of God. All right. Why do you need self-awareness? Again, this whole EI thing, emotional intelligence has been found to be more important than even cognitive intelligence for high performance and lasting success. Above a certain IQ doesn't matter anymore. It's your EQ, emotional intelligence, that will determine how successful you will be. All right, and self-awareness is not only the start to that; it's also the end of that. It's key. Without self-awareness, forget about being emotionally intelligent. The last reason I'll give you is that self-awareness is not only for the foundation stone, but also the capstone, self-actualization. You remember, Maslow's hierarchy of needs, right? A foundation of self-awareness leads to self-acceptance. This is from Bill George's book, which then leads to There's self-compassion, self-acceptance, and ultimately self-actualization. Now, how could you ever be self-actualized when you are not even self-aware? How would you know if you don't know who you are? How would you know if you don't know where you're going? How do you know when you get there? All right. So there can be no self-actualization when there's not been self-awareness in the first place. So these are some reasons why. I don't know whether we do have the time to do the second poll, or should I just conclude now?
I think
let me conclude.
We can do the poll. We can do the poll quickly.
Okay, so these 7 reasons, let's do the poll. Which of these 7 reasons is your strongest why for desiring self-awareness, right? Is it because the solid foundation and starting point for all success, integrity in life and leadership, right decisions and judgment? Which one of them? Let's do that quickly so that I can round up before Samuel comes to chase me out of town.
No, we are happy with you so far.
I need to be self-aware. That's one of the things I'm self-aware about my time. I get so excited when I'm speaking that I tend to go over time. So it's fine.
Right.
I'm totally fine with you telling me that time is up. I'll not be offended at all. Yeah.
Good. So we're saying, which of these is your strongest why? You want to be more self-aware. Which one is important to you?
It's quite distributed, but I think the positive impact on the others seem to be the most. Yeah. Can we end the poll, or shall we give people a few more? Only 52%, 53% of us have. Okay, it's going up, so maybe we'll give you a bit more time.
Yeah, just 30 seconds more, and then we'll see.
Okay. Great. All right, so a lot of people want to have a positive impact on others. That's great.
Okay.
20% of us. Oh no, 25% want to have integrity. That's awesome.
Yeah, it's important.
That's great. Yeah, the word integrity comes from the word integer, right? Which is whole.
Yeah, exactly.
So whole numbers. Now the opposite is fractions, which is divided numbers. Right? So you don't want to be divided. The Yao is different from home, is different from work, is different from the sports club, is different from. You want to be one, not fractionated, integrated, integrity. All right. Thank you guys very much.
Thank you. We can pull the pool. Yeah.
Okay.
Good. All right. So integrity is
leads the charge.
Impact. Yeah.
So about half of us is because of integrity in life and leadership and positive impact on others. 48% of us. Yeah, that's great. I mean, I'm sure you want all of them. We just made it difficult to you to choose just your strongest, right? So that's fine. So let me bring this to an end. How can we be self-aware? Many of you are asking, so how? You've given me a strong why, you've given me what this is, but how? What is the how? How can I do it? All right, let's do that. So how do we grow in self-awareness? First of all, we all need a developmental mindset. The developmental mindset, meaning the self-awareness journey, is a lifelong leader development process. It's not an event. Like, it's not after this webinar, now you are self-aware. It will take you a bit closer, a bit to the next level, but it's a lifelong process. Now, we acquire self-awareness, we grow in self-awareness through 2 things. I'm going to give two things. Number 1 is through persons, and number 2, through practices and tools. All right. Through persons, what do I mean by that? Well, number 1 is yourself as a person. Introspection as a person, and feedback from other persons. That is how we get self-awareness. Introspection as a person, yourself, and then feedback from others. So we need self-reflection. For many of us, it takes a significant, usually a tragic event before we get introspective, before we sit and think and say, let me reflect about my life. Don't wait for disaster before you think about your life. So we need people in our lives, ourselves and other people. Ourselves is introspection, self-reflection. For others, feedback. All right, to be self-aware. And for those of you who are people of faith, the third person of the Trinity is another person. David, one of the greatest kings that ever lived, said, "Search me, O God, and know my heart today. You know, can ask the God, the person of the Holy Spirit to search you. So persons is number one. Let me give you an indication of that. There's something called the Johari window. I don't know whether you've seen the Johari window. I like it. It was developed, I think, 1955 or something like that. It's not a modern thing, as modern as a lot of people think. Well, if the things that are known to yourself and known to others, that is called the open self, the arena. But there are some things that are known to yourself that are not known to others. It's called the hidden self. Then there's the blind spot or the blind self, those things that are known to others, but they're not known to you. Okay? So the thing about this Johari window is that the way you need people in your life, family, especially your spouse if you're married, teammates, an accountability friend, all right, mentors, coaches, all right, who will help you to discover more of your blind self. In fact, coaches are also able to help us to bring out more of our hidden self. All right. Somebody said the most difficult thing in becoming self-aware is to see ourselves as others see us. Leaders need accurate feedback to identify their blind spots. So if you look at this diagram by Bill George, you can see that the known self, the known to others and known to myself, that open place, the exercise of self-awareness is to expand into the blind spot, expand into the private part, the unknown part, expand into the hidden self, and expand into the unknown. How big is your open space? That is the degree to which you are self-aware. Okay, all right. So I hope that the biggest quadrant of your life is not the blind or the unknown or the private, but actually the open. That's the journey we want to take. And my hope is that you seek feedback. And when you get feedback, you respond well to it. We all need to get out of whatever closets we are in. This is a picture of my wife and I a few years ago. But if your marriage is a huge blessing, because nobody knows you more intimately than your spouse. You can fool everyone but your spouse. So if you want true feedback, ask your spouse. This is the best self-awareness reflector. So leverage that relationship. A certain CEO, after his second marriage fell apart, he was convinced that it was all his wife's faults. And so he said, I thought I had a wife selection problem. Then he went to a counselor who said to him, I have good news and bad news. The good news is you don't have a wife selection problem. But the bad news is that you have a husband behavior problem. Okay, so we need those people in our lives to give us feedback. This my leadership team at International Student Ministries Canada, which I lead, and our board. And I just wanted to throw that in because in the organizational and corporate context, boards are great at making CEOs self-aware. So don't think that corporate board, because the law says we should do it, people have to have fiduciary responsibility. Take it as a protection that you have a board. And there's somebody on this call, I don't want to embarrass him, so I will not mention his name, but I was very surprised. He works for one of the big banks in the world. They are based in Europe, but he works from the US. And he approached me at the beginning of this year and said he was setting up a personal board. Not for an organization, for himself. He set up a board and he invited me to serve on that personal board because he wanted feedback. He wanted accountability. All right. So please get a board, personal and corporate. Get a coach, get a spiritual director. All right. Let me list these practices and tools and then I'll be done. I think I'm now over time by about 7 minutes. Yeah. So these are some practices. Solitude, being quiet, solitude and silence, being alone in this hyper-connected world, being quiet, mindfulness, meditating, centering yourself in God, self-reflection. Too many of us are always with somebody. You are not going to know yourself, or never silent. Some of us, we never keep quiet unless we are asleep. We need that silence, solitude, scripture study. Don't forget the Bible is a mirror. All right. Journaling. Get into that. Write your life narrative if you haven't done that. Write a personal mission statement. Not only is the statement important, but the process of it clarifies a lot of things about yourself, your character traits, your values, your personal vision. You need accountability sessions. Every month I have an accountability session with my best friend, who is my best man as well. And you need coaching sessions as well. There are some tools, I'll just list them. The genogram. It's important in tracing out your relationships and the patterns in your family. For example, if your great-grandfather was adulterous, your grandfather was adulterous, your father was adulterous, you are most likely going to be adulterous. You've got to know that and get ready for that and put in place things for that, structures for that, okay? All right, so that's a genogram, very important. Then there are other tools, okay, like personality tests, Enneagrams, Myers-Briggs, StrengthsFinder. Sam and I are experts in the DISC. which is a great tool in helping in personality assessment. So if you want after this to be coached in, knowing your personality, Sam and I can help you in that. I'm a high D, and my wife is a high D. So that alone should tell you, you can have big trouble because Ds go like that, okay? When we agree, we can take on the world. When we disagree, we can burn the world, okay? All right, so you can see that this takes time to go into your public self, your private self, your perceived self, okay? For lack of time, we'll leave this out. I wanted to ask you which one is most needed to you right now, introspection, that is self-reflection, or feedback from others. But the last thing I want to say is we need to accept ourselves. Yes, there are persons that can give us feedback. We ourselves can be self-reflective. There are practices, there are tools, but if we don't accept, nothing will happen. We need the self-compassion, like Bill George showed us, and the self-acceptance to be able to get to self-actualization. The first time I met Tony Dungy, he said this, and I've never forgotten, no excuses, no explanations. When you get information about who you are, don't explain it away. Don't make excuses. Say, like Alcoholic Anonymous, I am your Perbi. I often go over time when I'm giving speeches. All right. I need to own it and not make explanations and take things away that way. So in conclusion, let's get going. Self-awareness is the foundation of authentic and lasting leadership. This is a statement that is very dear to me, and I've been saying it a lot these days. It takes deeply transformed people to deeply transform society. There are too many people that are not transformed but are trying to change the world. Please, let's get to work. Let's get to the work within, because it begins with me. Thank you very much, and I'm looking forward to our interaction.
Wow, this is powerful. This is actually, I was just trying to see if I can make some takeaways, and my notebook is already full, so I don't know where to start from. Doc, thank you so very much. I think what I'm just going to do is just to pick a few of the comments that I'm seeing here.
Some people said it should have been divided into two.
Yeah, self-awareness should be the starting point of every leader's development. That is from Francis. Joshua, self-awareness is the genesis of leadership. That's great. Ethel says, without self-awareness, there is no foundation. It takes self-knowledge to beget God knowledge. Wow, that is amazing. There can be no self-actualization without self-awareness, and actually that is very, very, very powerful. Thank you very much. Okay, I'm trying to get more takeaways. Leaders need accurate feedback to identify their blind spots. That's another from David. The way we see a leader in our society, is it possible to have an honest leader? I think that is a question. All right. So we're going to quickly go into the Q&A and pick your questions. So put your questions in the Q&A. But before we go to the Q&A, I see we have 5 minutes to the top of the hour. Let me just talk to you briefly about our upcoming events, Live to Lead. And actually, all this platform is heading towards October 9. And for those of you who are not already aware, in October every year, the Center for Transformational Leadership hosts John Maxwell's top leadership event. And it's called Live to Lead. We've held Live to Lead 4 times. Several organizations have sent people to Live to Lead in the last 3 years. And last week, I was speaking to the head of HR of Goldfields Ghana Limited, and Goldfields Ghana in the last 3 years have been our lead sponsors. And Mr. Francis Eduku, thank you so much, says, for as long as they are here, they are going to support Live to Lead because they believe this is going to impact the leadership narratives in our country. And he said to me, Sam, whenever my people come to Live to Lead, they come back to the office excited and energized And one, it tells me one, currently they are using a slogan in the mines. And the guy came from Live to Lead and said, guys, can we have a slogan? Let's say, live to lead in safety. And everybody say, yeah. And so now
awesome.
that is the slogan that they're using in the goldfields mines to protect people. And that is the power of Live to Lead conference. And I'm encouraging all of you. We have the link on our website. This year, because of COVID, is going to be virtual like we are doing today. But it's a fantastic platform. You're going to have your own screen where you're going to enjoy Live to Lead. We have a number of speakers lined up, and you can get the details. John Maxwell himself will speak, and other very top chief executives will come and share things. The theme for this year is changing the world through leadership. And each one of us is going to learn how we can, in our own small way, change the world. We are talking to some special person in Ghana. Every year we bring a speaker from Ghana, and we are talking to some special person to come and talk to us. And once we announce the name, and all of you would just sign up. But I encourage you already to sign up. When you sign up, you will have a personalized electronic ticket. Go onto the website and sign up. It is only $79. Now, this is a special price for us because after end of August, the price is going up to 110. And actually, if you registered on the American platform, even now, you'll be paying 110. We have a special price, and it's $79 per person. We encourage organizations, HR heads. We've had financial institutions, insurance companies, several companies. We've had over 1,500 people coming to Live to Lead almost every year. So please, we encourage you to hook up, connect with us. For more details, go to our website, ctl-africa.com, or go to our live2lead.ctl-africa.com, and you would find more information, especially about the speakers, about the topics, and we'll be sharing more information with you. So that's out of the way. Let us go to
Sam.
Yes.
Don't just take it out of the way, because I just want to add my voice to that. I told you Sam and I are both John Maxwell trained, certified people. I've been hosting Lead to Lead in Montreal, in Canada, as well. I've led it, a couple of times, and I want to tell it will spark something in your life. A lot of us, when we see something like $79, we probably are thinking of it as a cost. You've got to look at it as an investment. Investment in what? Many of us don't mind buying a phone for $79, or an iPad or whatever it is. But when it's investing in us, then we're like, oh. And I hope that today, if there's nothing at all, you've seen how important it is for us to invest in ourselves. You are the most important asset in this equation. All right. Exactly. And so if you're not investing in yourself, what else do you expect? How are you expecting a return on an investment you haven't made in yourself? So I really want to commend this. And this is not just to take your money. This is to invest in you, so that as we all get better, the tide raises all the boats.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. And I like that point. I mean, we have visions, we have aspirations, we have whatever we want to achieve in the world. All that reside in us, in you, the person. And so it's absolutely important to invest in yourself. And the lesson today actually makes that clear. So the lines are already open. When you go on the website, you can already register, okay? And then for organizations, if you contact us and you give us the names, we can also help you register. If you have any questions, please begin to register from now, because from end of August, the price may go up, and we're fighting to keep it like that, because we've told them that we don't have as much money as the Americans. But this is Doctor, I know some people who just sit by fufu bar and they spend more than $100, and it's not. So please, some of you just order something and then it's more than $100.
That's a lot of
Yes.
investment. It will show. It will show in the waistline.
Exactly. Absolutely.
All right.
Thank you so much. So we have a few questions up, Doc, and I'm going to go through them.
Okay.
Nananke Chia says, it appears Ghanaian leaders do not place much premium on personality types, self-awareness, all this soft stuff. Why? What can we do about it? So I'll take a few questions, and then you would talk to us, Doc. Number two, Victoria asks, how do you deal with situation where the people who are to give you constructive feedback, example, managers at work, become holy praise singers? All right, so they need to give you feedback, but they are just giving you praises. David asked, please, how can one get the slides? Don't worry, we would make available the slides to you. Everybody who is participated would have the slides. If you go on our website, you have the slides for the previous ones also, and the audios. Actually, we are live also on Facebook, and you have it on our YouTube channel, the CTL Africa Facebook and YouTube channels, and our website, you would have the slide. All right. Previn, I hope I pronounced the name well. Self-awareness is a long journey and may take a lot of time. How do we ensure we don't lose track? So maybe I'll end there, those 4 questions, Doc, if you can address them quickly. And I'm aware that we are at the top of the hour at 8. So, you know, you have, you can permit yourself to leave if you want, but we will encourage you to stay a bit with Doc, because there's more that you will listen to hear from him. So Doc, take those 4 questions and let's
So these are really good questions. So why is it that the PS Ghanaian leaders do not place much premium on this stuff? I think it's because we don't know. You know, and these are the things that fall into the category of what some of us classify as you don't know that you don't know.
Absolutely.
Right, exactly. So that's why we're having this conversation. And so perhaps you go to work and you send a note to your HR manager and says, oh, how about us having a 360-degree assessment? Or how about us inviting Sam and Yao to, you know, conduct the disc, you know? Then like, oh, what is disc? I'm telling you, I've met some really big people in society who had no clue what a personality assessment is. Okay, so these are in the realm of things that we don't know, you don't know. And so I'm hoping that people like us will all add to the critical mass of people who begin to throw this in the fray. And as people begin to have a taste of it, then they go and tell another person. Then they ask another person, have you done it? And it snowballs that way. That's a great question. How do you deal with a situation where people supposed to give feedback become holy praise singers? Well, it'll be interesting to find out why they are doing that. Are they even self-aware that they are doing that? But again, that is why it's important for 360-degree feedback. Feedback from those on the top, feedback from your peers, and feedback from those your subordinates, because maybe your subordinates won't sing your praises. But apart from 360-degree feedback, I also ask for feedback outside that context. All right. So that's why every one of us needs a coach. Maybe you need even 2 or 3, but at least one coach, you know, who you can sit with, who can be, you know, straight up with you about things going on from work, family, you know, health, etc. So everybody needs a coach. There's no high flyer I know who doesn't have a coach. How come we think athletes cannot do without a coach, but we think we can? All right. So that's my response there. And then which one? Self-awareness is a journey that takes a long time. How do we ensure we don't lose track? Again, that's why it's important we have goals and we review the goals. That is personal, but have people in your lives that are keeping you accountable. I told you about my friend who is on the call. I mean, he set up a personal board, you know, I don't have a personal board. I have an accountability friend and a number of mentors, who keep me on track, but he actually set up a board. Isn't that cool? For maybe some of you, that's the most practical thing you can leave here with. Set up a personal board. And once a quarter, review the quarterly results. There's no company that says, oh, we've been doing quarterly results for 50 years. Now we are tired. No, every quarter you look at the quarter's results. And so the same way, this can be a lifelong journey without us losing track. We all need those mentors in our lives, especially.
Thank you so much. Let's take a few more questions. David asked, how do you deal with negative feedback when it is coming from junior subordinate colleagues? All right, so how can your juniors give you negative feedback? All right. Emmanuel James says, I am a manager, maybe of a team of millennials, and I'm a millennial myself. My direct boss isn't one. We get too many conflicts managing my team and managing up. What self-awareness do I need? All right, so a millennial managing millennials and having a non-millennial boss and having conflicts.
Are they having conflicts or they are not having conflicts?
He says,
they get too many conflicts.
We get too many conflicts with managing up. So
yeah.
What self-awareness do they need between the millennials and non-millennials? The next one, from Joshua, we are mostly told to be optimistic in every situation we find ourselves in. How do we harmonize self-awareness and optimism? All right. Okay. So that is the third one. Let me see if there is
These are very good questions.
Yes. I think I mixed up the questions. Okay. Anonymous attendee, thanks very much for this great opportunity to increase in knowledge and awareness of that. Okay, this is my first time. I'm so grateful. Okay, so there's a comment to have insights starting on how to start a business. Okay. David asked again, how do we integrate self-awareness within and among church leadership? Many church boards are not giving feedback to their pastors. All right, so we will end on that one. You take us away and let's say.
Oh my
All right,
goodness.
thank you.
This guy wants me in trouble. All right. How do we deal with negative feedback when it's coming from our juniors? I'm wondering why the questioner is distinguishing between the feedback coming from juniors or coming from peers or seniors. The question is, does it really matter?
Yes.
But maybe from
because the boss is not supposed to have negative feedback from juniors, so it's always supposed to be downwards.
Yeah. Right. So that one of the reasons why I went into the why before we went into the how we can be self-aware is, we often say that he who knows their strong why can withstand any how. And I think Sam actually talked about that in the first webinar we did about leading with vision and purpose. So if you're getting negative feedback for subordinates and you have a strong why, you want to lead with integrity, you know that there'll be no self-actualization without, that like research has shown, the kind of positive environment you have and effects you have on your colleagues will be as a result of your being a self-aware leader. If you know all these things, you can take feedback, you can take anyhow. You can take any feedback from anybody, junior or not, because you have a strong why. One of the things I would say is that perhaps when you're getting this negative feedback, get a colleague, a trusted colleague in that workplace environment to see if they agree. Because people can also give you feedback out of envy or spite, or just negativity, So if you have somebody on your level as well, and that's why you need colleagues, in your work environment who are on your side, so to speak, and then you can objectively look at it. You need a third person. You need a third eye, and it's a similar answer I would give to Emmanuel as well. That you probably need a third eye. It's just like in marriage. Sometimes I tell you, I always say to my to young couples that I think I regret that my wife and I never saw a third person or marriage coach or marriage counselor till after 10 years of marriage. Because we are given this impression that, if you go and see a counselor, it means you are failing. It's a stupid thing. So forgive me for using such a strong word. Because, listen, every 5,000 kilometers or so, we send our cars to change oil. We do car maintenance. How come we do car maintenance, but we don't do marriage maintenance? But there's some things that, the two of you may never see eye to eye until a third person comes in and gives perspective. So for Emmanuel, for your question, you may need, and we do this for companies sometimes. I go to a company and listen to what's going on, and because I'm from outside, I'm able to bring a perspective, to millennials or non-millennial bosses, whatever it is. So you need a third eye, Emmanuel, and same thing with the previous. You need a third eye, and so I know what I'm talking a lot about getting coaches. But it's not just because we are coaches and I want to quote unquote sell you a product. No, it makes a big difference when you have a third eye, not just a third eye, a trained third eye, because you can have third eyes that still don't see anything. And I want to tell you that we've been to situations where, and maybe this will encompass Joshua's question as well. We've been into situations where there's serious conflict happening, and not because anybody is necessarily a bad person who wants to do the other end. It was just been, clashing of personalities. And once we do the analysis, whether it's with StrengthsFinder or with DISC or Myers-Briggs or whatever it is, and people see in the team the various strengths and weaknesses and how people clash, it's like, oh, I'm so sorry. I thought you were a bad person. I thought you were out to get me. It's just personalities that are clashing, but you were not aware. All right. So big thing to take away with. All right. Take away the third eye. Get an external coach or consultant to help you sort those things out. And then there was a question about, we are mostly optimistic. Yes, we need to be optimistic. In fact, one of the traits of self-awareness is self-confidence, right? In the formula, if you remember, emotional self-awareness, but there's no self-confidence in there. We need to be optimistic, but not naive. The two are not the same. If you are optimistic, but you are not aware, it's like a soldier who is optimistic. We'll win the battle, but you cannot tell that, Charlie, the ranks have been compromised. Then you're going to lose the battle. So optimism, absolutely, but not naivety. And the stories that they used to do that to the Roman conquerors. When the Romans, gladiators, they go out, they win battles, etc. When they come back and they are riding with all the enemies, the captured people, etc. in the train, that's the imagery, actually, those of you who are Christians, that's the imagery Paul uses, when he talks about how Jesus Christ has made a public show of the devil and his forces by triumphing over them by the cross. Like he's done a public display of them. But when the gladiators are riding back from battle, there's somebody always standing behind them who's whispering to them, you are only mortal. You are only mortal. Just to keep them grounded. So yes, we need to be optimistic, but we shouldn't be naive. Otherwise, it will come back to bite us. Self-awareness doesn't take away confidence, but it also takes away, but it also includes a certain objectivity about where we are weak, our limits, and things like that. Very good question. Thank you for that. And you even need to be optimistic about the fact that you can change and your life can be better. So never lose optimism, but don't be naive. Yes. Good. Church leadership. Oh my goodness. Let me tell you one thing. This is a big issue because a lot of pastors are not emotionally aware and emotionally healthy. And I know this because one of my mentors pastors one of the most multicultural churches in New York City. He wrote a book called Emotionally Healthy Spirituality. And one of his theories is that, it's not even a theory, what should I call it? Let's say the synopsis of the work he does is that it is impossible to be spiritually mature while remaining emotionally immature. If you are interested, please take a note of the one who asked that question. I'll send you a link of an assessment you can do measuring your own emotional health, emotional health and spiritual health. They go together, okay? And you can send it to your pastor to take the test too. But you'll be amazed that many of us actually use spirituality to cover an emotional immaturity that we have. But we're supposed to love the Lord our God with all our hearts. Actually, emotional maturity comes first. With all our hearts, with all our souls, with all our minds, and with all our strength. So if you are on a church board, henceforth, know that it is your job to give objective, loving but objective feedback to your pastor. Otherwise, you're not only harming him, you're harming the whole congregation and beyond. Don't forget, scripture says, speaking the truth in love will in all things grow up into him who is the head, which is Christ. From him, the whole body, joined together by every supporting ligament, grows and builds itself up in love as each part does its work. So if you're on a church board, you're not speaking the truth in love, you are actually harming. Speak the truth, but in love. So some of us are truth. We don't do it with love, and that's painful, and it's not well received. Some of us also are love, and we don't speak the truth. We need both the left hand and the right hand. They go together. Yeah. Good question.
Okay. All right. So I think we'll take a few more, and then we would. The other question was, how do we integrate self-awareness within? And okay, that's what we have addressed. Being more open. Being more open makes you more vulnerable. Isn't that dangerous also? What if you are taking advantage of? All right, so that's a question on your your chart of opening up your open self. All right, and Ni asked, when you do not get feedback from your members and fellow executive members, is it a problem? All right. Is it a problem?
I think that one we should say right away. It is a big problem.
Okay.
But maybe they don't realize. You expect feedback. So clarify that expectation. Make it very clear that I do expect feedback, even when it's painful and negative. Quote it with love, but I'm expecting it. Yeah. So yeah, it is a problem if we are not getting feedback.
What's the difference between leadership and authentic leadership? That's another question. How do I get someone to coach me? I need one. Well, that's one of the things we do here at the Center for Transformational Leadership. We have several John Maxwell coaches in Ghana. We have Ghana Coaches Association. So if you contact us, we'll be able to guide you. I take that one away from Doug.
That's great.
I want him to answer the hard questions.
No, you're asking the questions that bring money, and then I take the ones that. Good. Well, Amma, that's a great question, and actually, vulnerability is a very powerful thing in leadership. The most vulnerable leaders are the most powerful. Think about Martin Luther King, think about Gandhi, think about Jesus Christ. I mean, one of the things that shocks me about Jesus is how he made his emotions so available and so clear. For example, in the Garden of Gethsemane, he actually said, he told Peter, James, and John, my soul is sorrowful to the point of death. Stay here with me. And so you are right. Vulnerability is dangerous. You are literally opening up and saying, vulnerability is what Jonathan did to David. He became his friend. He opened up and he gave him his sword. It's literally saying, here's my sword. You can take it and you can hurt me. There are some people who will take advantage and hurt you, and you need to be prepared for that. But you need to be prepared to say that vulnerability is so important and it's such a powerful thing that even though some people will take advantage and hurt me, it's still worth it. Because the depth of leadership you have, the authenticity of it, and how powerful it is, you cannot allow the pains and the fears that come with it to take away from the joys and the successes and the great fruit, lasting fruit that it brings. So it is more dangerous, but leadership is a dangerous calling if you're going to do it well. It is. So thanks for that. That is great. You might be taken advantage of, but it's part of the. Ask Jesus Christ. Don't forget God Himself, and He was taken advantage of. What's the difference between leadership and like we define leadership already, right? As a leader, someone who influences others, towards a certain purpose, a noble purpose. Now, authentic leadership is to do all of being real, to who you are, being real to the people, being real and faithful to the objective, etc. So authentic leadership is a type of leadership. In fact, I don't know whether I should do this, but if you are a real student of leadership, North House has a big, thick book like this on leadership. And this book, and this is an academic book, but it's written well. So there are all kinds of leadership he talks about, because these have been classified in the academic space. So there's straight approach to leadership, there's skills approach, there's behavioral approach, there's situational approach to leadership, there's path goal theory of leadership, there's leader-member exchange theory, there's transformational leadership, there's authentic leadership, there's servant leadership, there's adaptive leadership, that's popularized by Hensky and his friend from Harvard. There's followership, there's leadership ethics, there's team leadership, gender leadership, culture. So there are different kinds of leadership under the broad banner of leadership, and authentic leadership is one such sub-banner. But for me, authentic leadership is everything, because you want to be genuine. You want the fruit that you bear to last, and you want to be true to yourself. You don't want to win the world and lose your soul. Jesus said, what shall it profit a man if he does that? All right. Or win the world and lose your family. Okay. Or win the world and lose your faith. So that is why for me, authentic leadership cuts across all kinds of leadership. But in the academic space, it's seen as one of the different types of leadership genres, if you like. So it's like asking me what's the difference between music and high life. High life is a genre of leadership. Yeah.
Okay. So I think we have just 5 minutes. So I'm going to make the rest of the questions snappy, and then I'm seeing some hands up. I don't know if we can get to them, but we'll see. Dr. Perbi, you have touched on
don't forget to tell them that next week there's going to be a session on emotional intelligence.
Yes.
So some
yes,
of come
absolutely.
Up yeah.
This is part of emotional intelligence. Next week we're going to have a broader emotional intelligence leading with that, and there's going to be more opportunity also. So if we don't address your question, just come next week.
That's
right. Fine. So the next question is, Dr. Perbi, you've touched on probably the most important person in our lives if you are married, your spouse. Why is it that they are the least we tend to listen, and how can we encourage leaders to accept or consider spouse feedback? The next one from National Guild, mostly getting to know yourself opens so much negatives about you, which apparently brings your spirit down. How do I work on that and still stand strong amidst discovering myself? That is something. All right. Ezekiel, okay, next question is, I'm a young man aspiring for leadership. How do I find a coach? I think we addressed that, and a personal board. Ethel again, and now today's leadership is basically about satisfying one's whims and caprices. But when you stand out and refuse to do so, especially when you find yourself in a team, you will be tagged as the one holy person, the only holy person. Assuming you find yourself in such a team, how do you deal with such issue, and how do you sustain your incorruptible nature? Well, let me take the last one, but there's more, but I think time will not allow us. Trust is very expensive these days, and it is not everybody who feels good about what you do. With this assertion, please, how do you distinguish between genuine feedback of people from that of pretense and hatred? All right, so if you can address those questions.
From the bottom.
I think there's only one last one. I'm a life, I am a life and leadership coach. Yes, from Savannah.
Yeah.
And I have coach and mentors to help me for my self-awareness. For self-awareness, needed humility to know the truth about myself. Okay.
Yeah, it's great that you mentioned that, because humility, the word humble actually comes from the word humus, which is soil, earth, what we are made
Exactly.
So to be humble is actually to be yourself. It's
Okay.
not to be above who you are. It's also not to be below who you are, because sometimes I'm good at speaking. When you come and tell me you're good at speaking, I won't say, oh, but I'm now trying. No, that's a lie. That's false humility. To be humble
Yeah.
is to be yourself. All right. So you are very right, Silvana. An attitude we need to be humble, to be ourselves. An attitude we need to be self-aware and to be self-accepting, and eventually to be actualizing is humility.
Yeah.
There's a good question about how not to get negative when you're discovering all these negative things about yourself. One of the things I'll say is that keep the goal in mind, the why. Even for Jesus, the Bible says that who for the joy set before him endured the cross, scorning its shame. So look, the consequences of not dealing with your negative self are huge. It's worth the pain now for the future gain. All right. So encourage yourself that way. But again, that is why you need somebody along the line, a spouse, a teammate, an accountability friend, a coach. Please get a coach. I think that's the most important thing you hear today, because what you don't get from yourself, even the one who's asking about, some feedback that you may get that may be because of, hatred or jealousy. When you have an independent coach, they'll tell you as it is, because they don't have anything to gain, from the work environment, etc. So please get that third eye, that third trained pair of eyes. Get that external coaching, external advice. Okay, that's very important. Why do we despise our spouses? Is one of the greatest mysteries. And so we just need an attitude now change. And we also need to, especially if you're a person of faith, you really need to pray that God protects, your marital relationship, because the devil knows that is where your growth will come from. Yeah, because, it's amazing how we can, there are people who have led 500,000 member employee companies like General Electric, but they couldn't keep one marriage. There's something about marriage. It's a hot crucible, for character development. A lot of the pastors don't say that when they are telling us about all the joys of marriage. So for us, it should be a turnaround that, the enemy of our soul doesn't want us to prosper long term. And so turns our spouses against us, or makes us feel our spouses are against us. But let us have a shift of our minds and see our spouses are our greatest allies and live that way. I hope that some of the other questions will be handled next week.
Yes.
Yeah.
All right. Okay. So I think we are at the end of the time, and I don't want us to overshoot the time. I'm sorry. I see Afi, I see Ola, I see Majori, and the great lady. I see your hands up. I'm really sorry that our time is gone, but I'll be here if you want to talk to me. I just want Doc to just say his last words, and then we would conclude for today. Doc?
Well, thank you for inviting me, Sam. I really appreciate it. And thank you all for coming. I see some names I know there. I have my friend Miriam from Germany, Savannah from Switzerland, Pilar. Oh yeah, Pilar from Ecuador, who's a professor now in the US. Thank you all my friends, those from Ghana. My brother Nanan Kitia is there. My sister Edna Hunu from Databank. I see so many people I know and others I don't know, but thank you for coming. Thank you for being interested in yourself. Interested in growing yourself. I hope that today has been some sort of mirror in which you've seen a bit of your reflection and seen some parts of you that need to be straightened, that need to be dealt with. The story is told of a hunter who later became a farmer. The hunter had found a little lion cub and brought it home and raised it like a dog. The story is usually told of an eagle that was raised as a chicken, but this story is different. He got a lion cub and raised him as a dog. So the lion cub became like a sheepdog. And whenever whenever a lion comes around and roars, this lion, which is behaving like a sheepdog, will get all the sheep away, doing his job, but will also run away. Didn't realize it was actually a lion. One day, when he heard the roar, he at that time was drinking some water. So he looked at his reflection in the river and said, wait a minute. I look exactly like that guy who has been roaring and scaring the living daylights out of us. And so he looked up and he roared back. And he crossed the stream and went towards the other lion, and they started wagging tails. And ladies and gentlemen, I hope that as we reflect in the mirror of God's word, we reflect from feedback from others, we reflect from introspection, we get to know who we really are and become the lions that we were meant to be, and not behave like scary sheepdogs. May God add his blessing to all these things and make us all that he made us to be. Thank you for coming. And I hope I'll see you in the other series, but also especially at Live to Lead. Let's invest in ourselves, in our lives and leadership, because then we can expect good return on investment.
All right, Doc, thank you. And once again, thank you, everybody. I hope to see you next week when we discuss leading with emotional intelligence. And more importantly, please go to our website, the Live to Lead website, and register for Live to Lead. And if you have any issues, please let us know. That is the biggest leadership event. It's expecting over 600,000 people on that conference, hosted in more than 300 locations across the world. And hopefully Ghana has always been one of those locations. Please go to the website and register, and God richly bless all of you and have a very good night. All right, so I'm here. If he wants to talk, I can talk, and those of you, you are all allowed, and thank you. Have a good night. Okay.
All right. Well, thank you.
Thank you so much.
Sam.
Yes.
Have a good night too. And
good.
Unless you want me to stay on.
No, Doc, please. You are excused. You can go to Madam. Thank you very much.
Good.
Madam, thank you for allowing us this space.
God bless you all. Thank you for making it, and may we all become self-aware and authentic leaders. Yes, for the sake of our generation and for the glory of God. All right. Bye-bye.
All right. Bye. All right. Good. Thank you. Marjorie? I don't know how to do this. Unmute? How do I unmute this?
You need to promote her to attendee.
Yeah, because I see Marjorie's hand up. Okay, so Patty, hello?
Let me do that.
Okay. Yeah.
I'll promote the panelists.
Okay. Now, is it?
Yes, I did it.
Okay, you did it. All right. Is she still there? Maybe she's gone. Let me see. The hands were up. Okay. The hands are down. So
Marjorie can speak now.
Marjorie, are you still there? You can speak. I think it was probably by mistake. Afi? Okay. Afi is still there.
1 second.
Afi also raised the hand, but the hands is down. So I have GPI whose hands is up now. So let's see if they want to say something. No.
Marjorie has to unmute. She has to unmute herself to speak.
Okay, is she still online?
She is still online.
Say, GPI is ready to speak.
Okay, GPI.
Oh, hi, Sam. It's actually GP1. So this is Gina Esau from London. Hello.
Hello.
Hello, good evening.
Good evening.
Good evening, Sam. Yep. So Sam, it's GP1. Gina Esau from London.
GP1.
Yes.
Okay, GP1. What is the proper name?
Gina Esau, live from London.
Oh, Gina, how are you?
I'm very well, thank you. I just wanted to say a very big thank you for tonight's program. It's been very insightful. And we
Good.
pray that the Lord gives you the strength to organize many more of these to encourage us upcoming leaders coming up. So this is just an encouragement from our side to you.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. We appreciate that. Thank you so much, Gina, for making the time. Is Marjorie on? Okay. Marjorie, okay. So I think in the absence of any other comments, guys, on the rest of you on the line, thank you so much. We appreciate your time. God bless you, and see you again next week on the leadership platform. Thank you very much.